And welcome back to Philadelphia International Airport. Once again, we are visiting the airport ground on a random day in 2007. But this time in the late morning hours. But that does not take away any of the pressure the airport is under with the current traffic level. Especially since next to the standard traffic that the airport is seeing on a regular basis, a few special visitors have found their way to PHL 2007. On our tour around the airport grounds, we first come to the remote stand where we find this Airbus A320 of US Airways. The aircraft arrived earlier this morning from Palm Beach and is now taking on passengers for its next flight, which will bring the aircraft to Phoenix. But with still 30 minutes until its scheduled departure and passengers already waiting in the buses to board the aircraft, it will most likely be a very much on-time departure. Next to the US Airways, we then find this HC-130 Hercules of the US Coast Guard that arrived earlier this morning from Stewart International Airport in upstate New York. When the aircraft, and more crucially, where to the aircraft will be leaving, is however still unknown. Another and indeed very unusual visitor here at Philadelphia Airport can be found at the remote stands. This brand new 737-700 of EasyJet has just arrived from the Boeing factory in Everett. The aircraft is indeed on its delivery flight to the airline, but due to bad weather the aircraft couldn't take the more usual northern route over the Big Pond. So to avoid the bad weather, the crew decided to take a much more southern route, which led the aircraft to Philadelphia, where it will be refueled before it makes its way over the Atlantic, where it then will be flying to the airline's main hub at London Gatwick. Coming into the airport right now is this Boeing 757-200 of American Airlines that has just arrived from Dallas-Fort Worth, which is also the airport the aircraft will be returning to at 1:15 in the afternoon. Another arrival is this Airbus A330-200 that is currently on its way over to the stand where it will be offloading passengers and cargo. The aircraft has arrived from Munich, and once the passengers have deboarded the aircraft and cargo has been offloaded, the aircraft will be brought to a remote stand where it will rest for the rest of the day until the evening, when the aircraft will be heading back out to Munich again. An aircraft that has remained here at the airport grounds for much longer than originally anticipated is this Airbus A330-200 of KLM. The aircraft arrived already yesterday afternoon and had a scheduled departure in the early evening hours back out to Amsterdam, but due to a technical issue this departure was cancelled and the aircraft has remained here at the grounds ever since. Right now the aircraft is being towed away to a remote stand to free up some space around the terminal areas, and hopefully the aircraft can be fixed so it can be returning to Amsterdam later this evening. And as we are moving towards the A Concourse and the remote stands of the A Concourse, we find this Embraer ERJ-145 of United Airlines that is currently taxiing towards its stand. The aircraft has been deployed on the route between Washington and Philadelphia today. And already in the stand we find this Embraer ERJ-170 of Delta Airlines. The aircraft is today flying between Philadelphia and Atlanta and is right now preparing for its return flight. Passengers have just arrived with the bus and the aircraft should be ready to go in about 15 minutes time. And next to the Delta ERJ we find a Delta CRJ-200 in this case. Also here we have a bus and passengers are currently boarding the aircraft. However, unlike the previous Delta departure, this one is already a little bit delayed, so the ground crews are working hard to get everyone on board and get the aircraft going back to New York JFK. So while the remote stands of the Concourse are rather busy, the Concourse itself is relatively quiet at the moment. We find a CRJ700, however, of American Airlines over here that has been deployed on the route between Philadelphia and St. Louis. The aircraft still has about 40 minutes left until its scheduled departure, so things are rather calm around this aircraft. An aircraft that has just arrived and is being guided in by the Follow Me is this Boeing 717 of Air Tran that is making its way over to its Concourse position. The aircraft that has just arrived from Atlanta will remain here at the airport grounds until about 20 minutes past 12 in the afternoon and then return back out to Atlanta again. So while the Concourse is slowly picking up the pace, things are already rather heated over at the Concourse, the US Airways and Star Alliance Partners terminal. So we find here a Boeing 757-200 of US Airways that is in pushback. The aircraft has earlier this morning arrived after a flight over the Atlantic from Brussels, and with an hour turnaround time has now been prepared for its flight out to Charlotte. So while I can have my doubts, I really hope that this 1 hour turnaround was enough to thoroughly clean the cabin for the passengers leaving for Charlotte. And while the 757 is leaving for Charlotte, an Airbus A321 here in the stands has earlier this morning arrived from Charlotte and is now being prepared for its flight out to Los Angeles LAX, however already with a few minutes delay, and that will continue to grow as the aircraft is still being fueled and loaded and passengers haven't even boarded the aircraft yet, so that turnaround has clearly not worked out quite as planned. So hopefully things are going better over at this stand, where we find an Airbus A319 of Air Canada that about 25 minutes ago arrived from Toronto, to where the aircraft also will be returning, but with the departure time set at 20 minutes to 2 in the afternoon, there's still plenty of time over here. And then we have another A319 but of US Airways. This aircraft arrived earlier this morning from Miami and is being prepared for a departure to Chicago, but with only 5 minutes to go and passengers still boarding the aircraft, also this aircraft does seem likely to have a delayed departure. On the other side of the Concourse, where we find mostly intercontinental traffic, we find a really rare visitor here at Philadelphia. This Boeing 747-400 of Asiana Airlines has come in on a special touristic charter flight from Seoul in South Korea, and the aircraft is scheduled to leave back to Seoul in South Korea at 25 minutes past 12 in the afternoon, so just about 1 hour to go until this aircraft will be leaving Philadelphia again. Next to the Asiana, we have for Philadelphia a much more common sight, which is this Airbus A330-300 of US Airways that earlier this morning arrived from Frankfurt in Germany and is now being prepared for its next stint, which will bring the aircraft to San Juan. But it is of course not just the B Concourse that can give us some wide-body action. The C Concourse is also always ready for some wide-body fun. And so we find this Airbus A340-300 of Cathay Pacific in the One World livery. The aircraft arrived at 10 minutes past 9 in the morning from Hong Kong and is now being prepared for its return flight back out to Hong Kong, which is scheduled to leave at 12:15 in the afternoon. Next to the Cathay Pacific, we find a Boeing 777-300ER of Japan Airlines. This aircraft arrived earlier this morning, more specifically at 24 minutes past 9 from Tokyo Narita. And also this aircraft will be returning to its point of origin, so Tokyo Narita, at 28 minutes past 12 in the afternoon. And next to the Japan Airlines, we don't just find the last aircraft of our airport tour today, but also another very special visitor. Aeromexico has sent one of their brand new 777-200ERs on today's rotation between Philadelphia and Mexico City. This has been done as part of a training schedule for the crew to really familiarize themselves with the aircraft and the procedures around this new aircraft type in the Aeromexico fleet. And Philadelphia International Airport, of course, welcomes this very special visitor. Now with that, we have reached the end of our tour around the airport grounds. If you have enjoyed this video, then why not leave a like? That would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you're on around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching and hope to see you soon again here at PHL 2007.